This is the e-learning podcast, episode number 37.
We believe we live in an era where there's just affluent information. There's just too much of it. And the fact that technology and the internet is evolving as it is evolving, it's not an indication of that it's going to get any less.
Welcome to the e-learning podcast from lmspulse.com. My name's Stephen Laddick, and I'm the director at LMS Pulse. My guest for today is Aldo De Pape, creator of TeachPitch, a portal that seeks to address the problem of information overabundance. How does he solve it? Well, Aldo found in a mixture of crowdsourced curation and AI, the key for a community-driven feedback-intensive platform that helps teachers find great content and gives creators a source for validation. In this stimulating conversation, Aldo and I talk about the weird problem of having too much information, which at the same time is a sign for our modern times, of course, and the tools, some of them human, we all can use to curate information. We also talk about how it's wrong to think of technology as something foreign to us, when in reality, it's been with us since the dawn of civilization. This includes using, but also teaching, training, and finding new relationships with technology. We also talk about the advantages of community approaches to determine quality content and how Aldo was able to build a global education content research network. We also talk about why community research approaches can be the key to modern issues like disinformation and fake news. And we talk about a bit about vaccines as well. And finally, we talk about how companies can take advantage of TeachPitch and similar ideas to validate e-learning products on its quality as well as authentic feel. But before we get started, a quick word from our sponsors.
The e-learning podcast is sponsored by the e-learning Success Summit. Learn from more than 40 experts how to teach, work, and learn online without being overwhelmed. Get your free ticket to the summit at elearningsuccesssummit.com. And lmspulse.com, your best source for news, information, and resources for e-learning professionals for more than 10 years. Get our free roundup of the week's top news at lmspulse.com.
Hello, Aldo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephen. It's an honor.
Aldo, is with so many things. I mean, nobody ever knows where I'm sitting, just because I'm always on this virtual background. Where do we find you sitting today?
Today, you find me sitting in my kitchen in Aberdeen, Scotland, where I have recently moved to.
Fantastic. How, we're recording this just for posterity. We're recording this kind of at the top of November 2020. What is Aberdeen like this time of year?
Yeah, November is a very well-known month here in Scotland for being extremely gray. So, and I would say that very well reflects, that was a good forecast because if I look outside, it's very gray. It's around 8 degrees Celsius, I'd say. Okay. Sorry, I don't know exactly what that is in Fahrenheit, but that's cold.
It's cold. You're in the teens.
Yeah,
maybe the 20s, maybe.
Exactly. So the only upside is it's still very nice color-wise when it comes to autumn colors. So it's not. There's still lots of nature and trees and leaves everywhere, and that creates somewhat of a nice color palette. So
fantastic. It's gorgeous. People who listen to the podcast know, like, I'm sitting in Mexico City, and one of the things that we were really actually pleasantly surprised was that, we moved from Thailand, from Bangkok to Mexico City, and the greenness of this city is quite breathtaking. Like you don't realize, it's a city of 22 million people. You assume it's this concrete jungle, but there's trees everywhere. It's absolutely ridiculous. But enough about that. The first question I've been asking everybody as well on this podcast right now is, how's your COVID going right now?
Yeah, it's challenging times, and I think for everyone, I'd say. The UK is in lockdown, so England is in lockdown. Scotland isn't officially in lockdown in that sense that not everything is as closed as it is in England. So bars and restaurants here are still open, and coffee shops and whatever more. But it is severely severe restrictions are are ongoing. So we're not allowed to visit one another in the house, and we're not allowed to mingle and stuff like that. I'm working from home, so is my wife, and that's all going okay. We have a 1-year-old who's still able to go to nursery.
Oh, wow.
So we can continue to work. So it's restricted, but it is not as restricted as in other parts of the country.
Very cool. Thanks for letting us know. All right.
Yeah.
So,
how are you liking Mexico City?
well, Mexico City and Mexico in general is, we continue to try to compete for who has the most COVID cases with the United States and Brazil right now. I think maybe India at this stage, I don't know the exact statistics, but we have a huge number of cases, but the city is open for business. So, we're still able to go to restaurants and stores because luckily the way the weather works, there's lots of outdoor terraces. And we've actually been really pleased with the social distancing policy and the sanitary policies they have. For instance, like, if you go you're familiar with Decathlon, like the sports store,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's one person, and you can only bring one child with you, into that store, that kind of policy. So we're actually quite pleased. But our kids are still online. Unfortunately, the schools are all still closed. And so, as parents, we've got 3 of them. As parents, there's nothing more than we'd like to see. Not even for just the fact that we're having to manage that, but it's really like the socialization of the kids and having just moved to this new country, getting into that ecosystem. It's a missing piece for us. So we're looking forward to that happening. Hopefully, in the next, in the foreseeable future, but we really don't know.
We saw yesterday a press release of Pfizer that there's a vaccine with a 90% success rate. So that's hopeful. But
it's hopefully, and so by the time this is published, who knows? My hope will be that has become a reality. So because I think this country is, their policy or I don't know for sure, but it seems like they're waiting for that vaccine as their path out of the crisis, right? That's really the only way that they're getting out of it. Yeah. So you are the CEO and founder of a company called Teach Pitch, and I'm really excited here because I was looking through your business, and if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, I love how you position yourself. I'm going to read it just right now. It's like you say, we help teachers and schools resolve the problem of information abundance through content curation, artificial intelligence, and online training. I mean, it doesn't get any sexier than that. Whoever wrote that line, I hope it was you. I'm hooked. I assume that COVID has started to, has given you a little bit of a hockey stick in your business. Tell us about Teach Pitch. What is it that you do?
Yeah. Thanks so much, and thanks so much for taking a closer look at Teach Pitch. That's much appreciated. What we do is, exactly as it says on the tin, we try to resolve the problem of information abundance, and that's also where our journey started. We believe we live in an era where there's just affluent information. There's just too much of it. And the fact that technology and the internet is evolving as it is evolving, it's not an indication of that it's going to get any less, right? So, and this absolute tsunami of information creates also misinformation and distortion. And
and overwhelm, right? I mean, at the end of the day,
being overwhelmed, exactly.
Forget the whole fake news conversation, also just the overwhelm for parents and teachers. It's out of control.
Correct. So that's exactly the problem that we signaled, and that we signaled when we started the Teach Pitch journey back in 2014. I used to be a teacher. I taught at a special needs school in the Netherlands, and was working with children that were challenged by things other than just not being able to understand the curriculum or the subject they were dealing with. So they were challenged by being diagnosed in the autism spectrum, or they were challenged by being severely dyslexic, or were hyperactive. So they had all these types of struggles. And when I wanted to support them as a teacher, I was teaching economics and mathematics to the kids. I saw that well, there's no point in talking about the lesson material if I can't really effectively tackle, the first problem they're struggling with every day. If you were to Google today something like student with dyslexia, you get over 50 million answers, 50.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So something a lot more basic like the Pythagorean theorem in mathematics will get you over 1 million answers. Sure. So as a teacher, when you want to consult the internet and want to use it, there are two observations. One is there's content out there that can help you, which is great. And I think some strides that we've made in terms of that information is available, many of which is for free. So it's a democratization of the way in which we can learn and absorb, knowledge. So, that's something we should be proud of. But the nasty side effect of that is that we're not going to be able to navigate through all of that material, and we're not going to find the most relevant or the best material because there's just so much of it, and it's only getting more and more and more and more. So we try to be a compass, if you will, that helps teachers identify the best teaching resources available so they can become even better at their jobs.
Fantastic. So take me through, let's imagine I am, a secondary school teacher in, Hillsborough, Texas right now, and I've stumbled onto Teach Pitch. What is it that I'm going to find? Is it a fee for service where I come in and I become a member and then I can have access to things? Just take me through like the process for an individual teacher.
Sure. So good news is it's absolutely for free for you as a teacher to sign up to our search engine. And our search engine currently holds over 200,000 resources from over 220 high learning quality platforms. Think of content of Yale to Khan Academy to Columbia University. It's all visible on our website. Loads of usual suspects, I think, in names of providers that provide with high quality learning information. What we've done is we've basically aggregated that content and reorganized that content according to parameters that are important for an educator. Okay. So instead of saying, here's all the content of National Geographic, we basically say, okay, what is the age group of your students? How much time do you have available to teach this specific material? What is your preferred format? So are we talking a video? Are we talking an exercise? Or are we talking, a podcast? Are we talking a game? What is it you're looking for? And so by using these parameters, you can really kind of fine tune your journey. So you end up with, whatever it is you're searching for, from 500 to 5. And then you can still make the call which provider you want to work with. So do you want to work with content from National Geographic, PBS, Columbia, or the BBC, for instance? And then you can make that call. So that's basically effectively how our search engine works. Awesome. If you are a participant to the search engine, you will also be asked to join the community as a whole. And then this is where not only the curation part kicks in, but also where you're able to participate with the other teachers in the community. And we're currently close to 47,000 teachers from over 200 countries who have joined the community. On a weekly basis, we grow with over 200 new ones, which is organic growth. So there's nothing kind of marketed or whatever. It's like, a lot of people just come, from a mouth-to-mouth effect, which we're very happy with, word of mouth. Yeah. And they, so once they join the community, the teachers are also able to work with each other. So to train each other to better understand the resources that we have available, but also technology as a whole. So and this is where, we like to say that we are an online training provider in a peer-to-peer sense. So one teacher can work with us to create a tutorial around a digital topic they care about. So anything from using Google Classroom to educating your students to identify when you're dealing with Photoshop pictures, to project management, to kind of any tool that's available in this world. If you as a teacher are passionate about that, if you are, a convinced user and you want to share that knowledge with other teachers on the platform, then we can work with you to do that.
Wow.
So we're now also a growing library of lots of concise 40-minute tutorial videos that teachers have created all around digital topics they care for, to enhance the tech skills and capabilities of their colleagues all over the world.
Fantastic. Amazing. And then would I then either through the lesson material, so that it sounds like the digital topic would be sort of growing my skill set as a teacher, but then the digital topics, would I then log into to TeachPitch and use that in the classroom, or is that something I download and then use, or is it a link, or like how do I translate that into my classroom?
No, very good question. So we have it all available in one platform, which is accessible much like Netflix is. So we have all these videos together. So you as a teacher or as a school can get an individual subscription to that platform and kind of, watch all the videos and organize them according to your specific learning needs on that level.
Okay. And then, so are you ultimately, what's your business model at the end of the day? It sounds like there's a lot of free stuff. So who's paying you to do that?
Yeah. So we started working with lots of schools and institutions all over the world who basically say, we like what you're doing with this curation element with TeachPitch. We as an institution are also overwhelmed by this influx of content, and we would love to have a TeachPitch of our own. So, and that became our first business model, whereby we sit down with schools, institutions, or organizations working closely with schools and institutions, which could be governmental. And we basically built them dedicated content management systems, which includes all the content that we've curated, but has a separate library which is specifically customized and designed for the institution at hand. So that's our first business model. Then the second business model is whereby we work with this teaching community, whereby it's a makers movement idea. So you as a teacher, if you were to join the community of, we like to call them digital instructors, you would be joining it as a creator, but also as a consumer. So we basically give you the ability to create tutorials and share that with your peers, but also give you the ability to take off whatever content you want to have. So you basically, it works from both ways, so to say. So it's much like a Skillshare model whereby you pay an annual fee to join the community, if you will. And then a third business model that we have on top of that is that companies, technology companies, are increasingly interested to work with us because they say, hey, we have a great product that would go well with teachers. Sure. We would love to work with your teachers to validate, our product for the education market. Okay. And so with this product in hand, we then approach teachers and recruit teachers in a market they're interested in. We're currently active in 205 countries, so we have a wide outreach. So we can get you a teacher from Ecuador to the United States to India to whichever country, and then that teacher looks at the product and does an objective review on how relevant the technology would be for their classroom or their school. Cool. It's relevant to mention here that these are not advertorials, so it's not like that the teacher is forced to say this is great when they don't feel it's great. They can give their objective opinion, but our experience is that that is also what the company is looking for. They don't want to kind of, yay-say behavior. They want to grow, to actually get the feedback which makes it tick for teachers in that specific region.
It seems like your model would skew towards teachers who are tech savvy, right? So how have you seen things change in your business over the last 8 months, especially with the pandemic, of teachers who not only were savvy beforehand, but now, are being, they're finding that that's an even enhanced role for themselves. But what about all the teachers, which is the majority, who said, look, I love being in the classroom. I've got a few tips and tricks or a few tools that I use, but now I'm forced to also be a technologist. How has that changed your conversation? How has that, changed how the membership is working and those kinds of things?
Yeah, well, the conversation changed massively. And that's a very good observation. Our community, as well as the usage of the content we produce, has massively spiked. we've provided training support in using technology in collaboration with 2 governments. So with 2 ministries of education, one in Albania, where we trained over 20,000 teachers in using technology in a lockdown situation. And we did a similar exercise in Ecuador, whereby we also trained over 20,000 teachers in using technology in such situations. So, and that basically shows, is an indication for us of how needed our product is now, because we're not trying to be cutting edge, technology experts. We're just trying to build the bridge between the technology that's out there and is available for teachers to get them to use it, so you can achieve, normal results in the teaching and learning process.
Sure. So is this training that you were doing, was it very tech focused? Like, hey, here's how you use Zoom, here's how you use Google Classroom, here's how you use those kinds of things? Or was it, here's how you bring content into your classroom? Or like, what were the components of that?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So it was how to bring content into your classroom. So it's not only about here's how you use. In this case, for Albania, we spoke about tools like GoToMeeting, Google Meet, but also recording tools like Loom. And then we spoke about our own software, because we provide so many resources that they can navigate through for free. So we basically also said, use this as well. For Ecuador, we spoke about Microsoft Teams. We spoke about, again, a recording tool, Loom, Google Meet, as a free alternative to Microsoft Teams and to GoToWebinar for Albania, and then also part of our technology. So what we did is we sat down with the ministries and asked the ministries, is like, okay, which technologies do you want them to look at this moment? And they decided, like, let's go with this one and go with this one and go with that one. For Albania, by the way, we also looked at Google Classroom. We need to be complete here. Yeah. So from the outset, it was not only about the ability of talking online, because that is not necessarily what's so difficult. It's also having the ability to edit the conversation in such a sense that you can produce it as a lesson and can then forward it to your students, so your students can start engaging with it. So it's not only having a conversation, it's also getting it to a finished product that you can then also reuse, and not only you, but potentially also your colleagues. So you're not shy for any content that you need to deliver to your students. And that's where the first necessity was. And for teachers having the ability to do that. In both countries, you are struggling with problems on the level of connectivity, problems on not having necessarily the right resources to do such recordings. A lot of that is done via mobile phones. People don't necessarily have laptops or computers available. They don't necessarily have Wi-Fi connection, but they have a data package through which they work with. So we also try to accommodate to that specific need, just to ensure that teaching and learning would not stop in a lockdown situation.
Wow. Yeah. You just mentioned, you said that you have, I think it's 205 countries you're working in?
Correct, yeah.
So now we're talking about Quito and Ecuador, you're talking about Albania. The needs and the requirements of these different places around the world, 205 countries, have got to be radically different, right? We're lucky enough, we recently had a woman on the podcast who was in the middle of the Congo, and what they needed to do to stand up their learning management systems and keep their curriculum going over the pandemic. But we've also talked with people in the heart of Silicon Valley, right, in California, who like literally the pinnacle of technology. What are the challenges that you're finding as Teach Pitch, being able to serve these different communities with probably I'm assuming very radical or radically different needs and requirements? Or maybe they're not. Maybe you've met, that's one of your data points, that people really kind of need the same stuff.
Well, actually, I'm going to go with the latter. The funny thing is, I think that comes down to how universal technology has become and the use of technology. So we're not struggling with any kind of specific national curricular battles whereby it's highly customized and it needs to be highly contextualized to really understand the problem. At the end of the day, it's about how to apply technology. And yes, in Silicon Valley, they've been very successful in applying it, but that only advocates more for that, more or less. But I think that would advocate for, people in these areas, how their wisdom, which could be very easily translated in a 40-minute tutorial, could serve and could help so many people there. It doesn't have to be this, very big action whereby, massive contribution and volunteership is needed. Already one tutorial made by a teacher in California, for instance, who knows how to navigate through Google Classroom could help teachers in Albania tremendously. Right? Just because they know just a little bit better on how to use this technology, a technology that in terms of usage is still in its infancy in these countries, but still is very much growing and will be used. So I would go with the latter, that yes, of course, there are, very regional challenges and national struggles and whatever more. But when it comes to the use of technology, the beauty is that it's, a lot of it is transferable, and we can inspire and work with each other to increase, skill sets and capabilities on that level. Definitely.
So what are and then this may be a curveball, and tell me if you don't really have the data, but like I'm thinking one of the specific challenges would be connectivity, right? Somebody who has broadband in Albania is going to be different than somebody who's working off, a mobile phone connection in Nigeria or Nicaragua or something, someplace like so. Connectivity. Are there any other like critical foundational pieces or like that are differentiators for how one, the type of technology people choose, the delivery platforms they choose, just how I'm trying to look for the things that drive decision making, right? Have you seen any of that?
Yeah. So I mean, we surveyed many of our users, and the surveying that we did in Albania was a lot around, okay, how useful are these technologies for you, and can you tell us why you would want to use it in your own words? It's like, why do you think this would be of use to you? Because the last thing we wanted to do was just present them with something which they had absolutely no use for, right? So that would be bad if that were where it came through. So we developed something and then tested it and surveyed it, and then 94% of the teachers that we trained were happy with what we provided to them and said that what we actually did there, was an answer to their problem at that moment in time, which we were very happy with. Now the infrastructure and the solutions that we provided are not cutting edge. We're not talking virtual reality. We're not talking robotics or augmented reality. We're not talking any of that. We're talking basically a Google Classroom, which is an LMS sort of, tool that they could use where they could store content. And then we were talking a kind of a video conferencing tool, and on top of that, recording technology. Sure. So I think in our understanding, fairly basic. Right. So, but their understanding on that level is, of course, this is where they start. And once they get that, they can take themselves to the next level. Right. And I think that's the journey that many teachers have been able to go through in countries with better economies and where their connectivity is better. They were also once in a stage whereby, okay, this is how this conferencing tool works, and this is how this hard drive ID works. And now let's take it to the next level, and then to the next level, and then to the next level. So what I'm trying to say is that once you get the roots right of these technologies and these infrastructure, you can easily and much faster build it to the next level and the next level and the next level. And that could be done in an accelerated manner. It doesn't have to take 20 years before they're ready for, the tools they're using in Silicon Valley right now, if that makes sense.
Fantastic. Yeah, it makes absolute sense. Yeah. What about I'm just kind of wondering of the genesis of Teach Pitch, right? Like, clearly, you've been around, I think you said 2015. So, here you are, you're 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
what have been some of the aha moments? What have been some of the challenges? Where have you failed and had to pivot? For those of us who are in the e-learning business side of things, what have been some of your biggest lessons or some of your biggest things that were wow, I didn't expect that to work.
We're going to have to do another podcast for that, Stephen. If I really
too many.
I made so many mistakes, or so many lessons learned, yeah. But I'd say kind of one of the things that early on I saw that as a startup you're so focused on getting people excited about what it is that you do. And then from there on, getting clients to buy into your product. And what I was focused on very much was just getting it in with the client, just getting the product in there. But I wasn't asking any questions on, okay, once it's in there, how I'm going to make sure that, the client will renew and renew and renew and renew. So the life cycle of the client, even though I'd heard of it in theory, like I have, an MBA and whatever, I know what that means on paper. It didn't occur to me because I was just so focused on, as long as if I have the original buy-in, the original, the first signature, and then from there on, they will fall in love with the technology and, we will live long and happily ever after. That's not how it works, really, because, getting the signature and getting people starting to work with your technology is the mere beginning of things, because you need to be sure that people work with it in the right way. And in order to ensure that uptake, you also need to be aware of internal struggles within schools and institutions of, for instance, the decision maker who buys a technology is often not the user. The user is a completely different group that you also need to get excited about the technology, which you need to do after the contract has been signed. So you need to also make a considerable investment in training, the users of your product, which in our case was the teacher. So a lot goes into, making sure that the teachers start working with your technology and like it up to such an extent that it would justify a renewal of your license in year 2, right? So,
for sure.
And I wasn't at all kind of aware of that. I was too happy with, oh my God,
I made a sale.
We're there. So and too late, it just resonated with me. Like, well, hold on, there's no uptake. How are we going to do that? And other than just improvising, because of course we improvised a lot then on the spot saying, hey, you need to start using it and how can we help you and whatever. And that needs to be, and that's also one of the reasons why we focus on teacher training, specifically on technology, because we know how hard it is for technology companies to really get proper adoption of their tools. It's not only about just a tryout or a trial or just an initial sniffing of the software. It is also about, making sure that, teachers are married into it and basically say, this is all I need. This is the tool that I want. And that's what we, are now doing, in terms of business model, also with other companies, whereby we help them like, listen, if you want it to really sink in with teachers, then invest in training from the early start and let us help you do that, right? It doesn't need to be our technology. We can help get it to more teachers, and we know how a time-consuming task that could be.
Yeah, we had Kenneth Chapman, who's he's the vice president of marketing over at D2L, on the show a couple of weeks ago. Well, by the time this airs, it will be a couple of months ago. Just one of the quotes that he really resonated with me is he said, look, if you are not, people can sniff very easily a canned experience or an experience that doesn't resonate with them, and as you're talking about, being able to shift and adapt and really understand the needs of the, not even if it's an institutional client or it's this huge community of teachers, you've got to be there. Like, service at the end of the day is the name of the game in all of these things, right? Technology is not sort of buy it and it works and everybody's happy. Yeah. It's this living organism that you've got to continually shift and move and make sure that you're meeting the needs of people.
Yeah, and also, I mean, this is one of the things, talking about lessons learned, one of the things that I see is that when it comes to professional development and the use of technology by teachers, we're all talking about a rapidly evolving digital economy. I'm sure you've heard of a digital skills gap, and kind of, now the COVID-19 exposing so clearly that many teachers in whether these are from growing economies or in states already where people are better off, the level of knowing technology is in its infancy, and we basically think that the way to go with teachers in supporting them is is the way of how we do it currently. And actually, what I think is, I don't think that is the way. To give you an example, lots of professional development content is available for free, right? Currently, you have loads of videos and loads of things that are available that teachers can use. But if you take a very good, deep, granular look at that content, it is content that's basically, I'm generalizing, and I hope I'm not disrespectful, but in some levels, it's kind of leftover content that is just packaged as professional development content. And here, teacher, wouldn't it be great if you were to do something with this?
Right.
And I don't think that's professional development. I think that's just a content provider who wants to do something creative with content and then just provides it to the teacher and just add some teacher questions and said, oh, sure, it can be for free. And let's just baptize this into, teacher professional development content. But, and the questions we need to ask ourselves is, what's the learning journey here? What's the takeaway for the teacher? How are we actually helping the teacher here to thrive using technology so they can, deliver better lessons to their students? And what are the metrics for this? How can we be more effective here? Those are questions we need to ask. And not just, letting it be content driven and just say, here's a package of content. I'm sure teachers will be able to use it. Here, use it. It's for free. It's for free. Because that's what we hear a lot now. It's like, oh, it's for free and teachers don't need to pay for their professional development. And isn't that lovely? Yeah, I would say then first take a look at, the actual content that's there. And if that actually, provides support to the teachers. And,
right.
I would say that on a technology level, it hasn't really, because teachers are still in need of a lot of support on this level. So I would like to encourage everyone to start taking it seriously and, also backing it up with the proper resources left, right, and center. If it then needs to be behind a paywall for it to sustain, then so be it. But don't, let's not just say, here's a bit of, bits of pieces and content and, some, not relevant, but it's professional development, just to shush the teacher effectively, right? If I hope I'm not too hard here, but
no, it makes sense. I think it's really it's actually a really prescient point that much like you've curated content for a teacher to use in a classroom as well, like that the actual professional development content as well. You've got to be choosy, right? You've got to be clear about what it is that you're spending your time on, because at the end of the day, you really want to grow. Ultimately, you're assumedly investing your time there as a teaching professional so that you're growing and that you're able to continue to evolve and provide your students with more value. So I think it's a massively important point.
And I mean, if you see how much we invest in other sectors, how much is invested in learning and development within big corporations, whichever sector it is, why would we not invest that in providing that to teachers, even a fraction of that, right? And just to make sure that everyone's up to skill when it comes to using technology, and to assure that teachers are not going to miss out.
Final question I have for you is one that I'm asking everybody. What do you see coming down the pipe? What do things look like for Teach Pitch 6 months from now, a year from now? Is there a shiny new object that you're excited that is going to be coming? It doesn't have to be about Teach Pitch. It could be a different technology. Are there turns in the road that you expect along the way? What's your crystal ball say? No,
so that's a very good question. And again, we would need a different podcast interview if I want to give you the entire answer to this. So I'll give you the short version. Our philosophy and our vision is we want to train and properly train 10 million teachers in enhancing their digital skills and capabilities. That is our ambition. Globally, that's what we want to do.
Fantastic.
And our pathway into that is that we're going to take it a lot more seriously on how teachers should develop themselves on a technical level, meaning that we're going to work with some renowned institutions, but also put more of our own thinking, which is, both done on a grassroots level with the teachers that we work with, as well as with training designers to develop really learning journeys for teachers when it comes to using technology, so they can really develop themselves and be properly skilled, digitally. That's what we're going to do. We're also going to continue our work with the governments that we're working with in Ecuador and Albania. They very much appreciated the support we gave to them, and we're going to continue to train their teachers. So the outreach to all their teachers, that's going to that journey will continue, and we will hope that we're going to be able to work with more organizations on that specific level, so that we can assure ourselves that everyone is taking this specific part seriously, and that we never have to be at risk of teaching and learning to stop, because in some countries that's practically the point that we were at, a couple of months back, and I hope and pray that we won't be able to, that we're not going to go back into that with COVID-19 crisis further developing.
Aldo, you are the founder and CEO of TeachPitch. I encourage everyone to go check out your service, especially anybody who is a teaching professional, to look at this community of resources, not only for your students, but also for, building your own skills and building your professional development around the technology that you use in the classroom. Thank you so much for your time today. I really look forward to seeing how you continue to evolve, and hopefully we'll be able to get to talk again in the future.
It was great. Thank you so much for having me, Stephen.
Thanks again for tuning into today's episode of the e-learning podcast. If you like what you've learned today in this episode, I encourage you to either follow us or subscribe to us on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. And please do share this episode with one or two of your colleagues or friends. Also, I just want to remind you that you can level up your online learning game with all of the information that's available at the eLearning Success Summit. You can get your free ticket at elearningsuccesssummit.com. And finally, you can also stay up to date on everything that's important, all the news and the resources for e-learning professionals at lmspulse.com. Get our free newsletter by just going to lmspulse.com today. Thanks again.